Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Gino Colora here with CEO Effectiveness, and we're incredibly privileged to have you join us as we dive into this online workshop this morning. You know, when you take a look at what has happened, what has transpired over the past 6-7 months, it has really changed the game in the way in which we communicate and the mediums that we use to have fruitful discussions with colleagues, the way that we market our businesses, and the way that we ultimately get our brand out to the world, right? So this morning is really about diving in and how to optimize the use of the digital platform that is video and web conferencing and interviews and meetings. See, the big thing about videos and the use of web is when you are coordinating meetings, when you are occupying a leadership capacity, right, with different folks who are looking to you for influence, they're looking to you for guidance. It's not about what you are saying, it's about how you're saying it. So many of us don't have that face-to-face interaction, and though I know some of us are kind of creeping back in and getting back into the swing of things and getting face-to-face, but there's still a large majority of folks who are opting to stay at home or work remotely. So when you're looking at what it takes to be as effective, what it takes to motivate your team, what it takes to get your brand and you elevated to the next level, it is paramount that you optimize your time. You know, it's something that my grandfather used to tell me as a child all the time, and that's this: time is the most precious commodity that any one of us has, and you will never, ever be able to get it back. So my question to you is, how are you utilizing your time? You know, when I think about the use of my time when I am doing videos and conferences and interviews, I really want to optimize my impact on whoever is watching. It's really not about me. It's really about what can I do for them? What is it that they can walk away from in this time together and be a better person? Do a process a little more efficiently, be a little more coherent in the way in which they're presenting information, how they're presenting information. So with that being said, let's kick this morning off, and I want you guys to do a quick exercise for me. Now, obviously, we are on a webinar platform. I am the only one that has video enabled, and that is to make sure that everyone has the ability to focus and not have exterior sounds and distractions taking place, because I really want you to focus, okay? So I want you to think in your head right now, and I want you to think, what are the things that define me as a person? Who am I? See, that's a tricky phrase, right? It's a tricky thing, because so many of us say, who am I? Oh, my name's Gino Colora. And okay, well, so what do you do? Well, I'm a CEO of Effectiveness. That's what I do. So much more. So much more. And people crave and thirst to know what that much more is. So many of us on a daily basis work off that conscious level. Conscious decisions of things that are going on, things that we're entertaining in our lives, things that we have to juggle and manage. But taking the time to center yourself, taking the time to be introspective, taking the time to make sure that folks who are tuning in and giving their most valuable commodity, which is their time, to you, what are you doing to optimize that? What are you doing to elevate and take them to the next level? So this is what I want you to do. I want you to take the next 20 seconds, and out loud, I want you to tell yourself who you are. Who are you, right? And so as I'm talking, and I want you to play through that, I want you to talk through it. What I really want you to focus on are, what are the guiding principles that define you as a human being? Not as a leader, not as a C-suite, not as a business owner. What are the things that define the essence of the human being that you are? Because look, ultimately, I think we all understand that being mortal means that all of this comes to an end one day. What's that impact? What ways are you guiding and leading your life to have maximum optimal impact as far as the impression that you're making on this earth? Okay, so you know, when you're going through and you're taking 20 seconds to define who you are, I want you to take out a piece of pen, a piece of paper, and a writing utensil, pen, pencil, whatever you'd like to use. And I want you to write down the top 5 characteristics that come to mind, right? So I had you speak it, you verbalized it. Now I want you to write them down, and I want you to visualize them. I think all of us know there's many different types of learners, right? There's many different types of folks who are going to be tuning in and listening to you, right, as you're on a digital platform. So I want to make sure that you're capturing and captivating folks on a multitude of platforms, okay, and different ways of learning. So write those 5 things down. When you have those 5 things written down, this is what I want you to focus on. First and foremost, what is your calling? When you take a look at those 5 things, when you go back and you think about the 20 seconds that you took to define who you are, what are the 5 things that truly and really get to the heart of who you are and what you stand for? See, so many of us, especially when we're going a million miles an hour, there's a ton of tasks that we have to knock down and we have to do. We get caught, right? We get caught in this cycle of forgetting about the stuff that means the most because the priority is the task at hand. When in reality, every single touch point you have as a leader with folks who are following you, folks who are looking up to you, it is an opportunity for you to elevate them, which means it's an opportunity to elevate yourself. Okay? All right, so hold on to those 5 things, and I want you to remember how it is that you defined who you are, right, to yourself. So let's talk a bit about the nuts and bolts and the meat and potatoes, right? When we are having an online platform discussion, interview, webinar, what have you. You know, there are absolutely some lanes you want to stay in, okay? So many of us have a tendency to depend on really cool new types of technology, being able to utilize things like PowerPoint and the Prezi is another one that I know is utilized quite often. But nothing can replace interaction. Nothing can replace human to human interface. Truthfully, right? Whether it's through video or it's in person, it doesn't matter. Folks crave to see expression. They crave to hear intonation. They crave to see your passion. You've got to exude passion. But with that being said, there are absolutely some word choices, right, that you want to stay away from, right? So we're going to identify those right now, and I want you to take those, right, crumple them up and throw them away. Okay, I don't even want them to be part of your vocabulary when you are going through the process of having an online interview or you're hosting or leading a management type of meeting, right? Okay, so number 1, command. Any sort of word where I'm saying, Mr. or Mrs., you need to blah, 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 okay? When I start telling folks, especially an audience, right, that may be silent, that they need to do something, right? Of course, I can sit there and say I'm establishing myself with a command presence and as an authority figure. But is that really the outcome that you're looking for? Because 9 times out of 10, folks are going to resonate much more, right, with a supporting mechanism that follows behind whatever it is that you're saying. So what do I mean by that, right? You know that you want to be open. You want to be warm. You want to be available to different possibilities and the way in which people can interpret what you are saying and how you are saying it, right? So what are things that I like to do, right? So outside of staying away from you need to and you have to, right? Let's focus more, right, on phrases like, I always recommend. Phrases like, I encourage folks to consider X, Y, or Z. My tenure and experience have shown me that X, Y, and Z. There's a big difference there. There's a big difference in me diving in and telling someone what they need to do, as opposed to saying, let me tell you something I learned in my journey, and I think it'll help you in yours. Big difference there, okay? Stay away from filler words. Now, this is super difficult and it's super challenging for so many people. What do I mean by filler words? Well, yeah, actually, I was gonna stay away from that, right? Another one that is used quite often is right. It's an affirmatory phrase, right? So whenever I'm sitting there and I'm saying, sometimes whenever we're doing something, it can get a little convoluted, right? What am I looking for, right? Remember, you're talking to a camera, right? So you want to be very direct. You want to be very effective. You want to be very efficient in what it is that you're saying and how you are saying it, okay? So when you're looking at idea of filler words, you got to remember, you have to cater to your audience. If you start getting into a repetitive cycle, right, where all you're doing is every 2 or 3 sentences, it's yeah, right, what's the meaning behind it? And as soon as you start devaluing your message with your word choice, you start devaluing your presence and what it means to the folks who are giving their most precious commodity to you, which is their time. Okay. All right. So let's talk about really understanding your audience. So there's a big difference in how it is that I'm going to talk to an audience, right? That has a varying background. It could be folks from all walks of life, different demographics, you name it. Okay. But when I know I'm going to talk to a targeted audience, sure, utilize lingo, right? That is respective of the folks that you are talking to, so they know that you guys are operating on the same page. But at the same time, don't get caught in the weeds. You know, there's quite an old saying that says you can define a true professional by how well they can simplify the complex, right? The idea of how it is that I can take very complex ideas and make them palpable for a fifth grader. When you can do that with your message, when you can drive it home and attach passion and vigor with it, now you're starting to cook with some good stuff. Okay. So when you are looking at what it takes to keep your message palpable for everyone in your audience, a rule of thumb: do not use any words or explanations that an eighth grader could not understand. Okay. I think most of us have heard of that, but it's very hard to apply it. Those of us with, engineering backgrounds, medical backgrounds, different sorts of complex sciences, when you start using terminology and phrases that make you sound super smart, that's exactly what it's doing. It's making you sound super smart, but at the same time, people are saying, wow, that person is incredibly brilliant, but I have no idea what they just said. You got two routes. Either they're going to say, I want to learn more, which is not quite as often, as people will say, wow, that's cool, but they pay no mind to it because it didn't mean anything to them. You want your message to mean something. You want your message to have clarity. You want your message to be able to resonate with the heart and soul of the audience, of the folks that you're talking to. Okay, so word choice do's and don'ts. That's our number one bucket. Okay, now let's move over to number two. This one's heavy, right? This one's, a lot of folks, and there's conflicting data out there. I can tell you, listen, I have been a motivational speaker and a professional speaker for a very long time. And there are some tricks and trades, right, that I like to incorporate utilizing neuro-linguistic programming. As a matter of fact, I've used quite a bit already this morning, okay? Now, you're gonna ask, Gino, what is neuro-linguistic program? Well, listen, it's very simple. As a public speaker, as someone who's being interviewed, as someone who is spearheading a meeting or spearheading some sort of online discussion or in-person discussion for that matter, right? You are tapping into the subconscious and unconscious of the folks who are giving you their time. Now, what do I mean by that? It is very easy to have a template approach in what I say and how I say it. You have a basic introduction, you give a brief outline of what you're going to talk about, you dive into your content, you do a review, and you do a closing. Simple, right? Everybody knows that format. Let's take all that and wipe it off. There's a reason why this morning there's not a PowerPoint. There's a reason why what you're seeing right now, this is live, right? This is me. I have no script. This is me giving you nuggets that I am passionate about based off of my experience and what I have found that works and what does not work. Now, what resonates more? Me going through a 35-slide deck with you and reading the words that are on the page, or having this discussion, being able to present to you from the heart and the soul and the mind, right? Think about that. All right, so neuro-linguistic programming, what are some fun ways to tap into folks' conscious and unconscious and subconscious, right? So let's talk about this. Stories. Stories are fantastic, right? Now, here's the tough part with stories. You got to keep them under 2 minutes, okay? And it's really hard when you're on a roll and you're getting and going, and there's a really good lesson that you want to be able to convey to somebody when you're telling a story. Keep it to 120 seconds, okay? So when you take a look at what it means and what it takes to do that, remember, who are you talking to? How are you crafting the message in that story to where it resonates, right, with where they're at in their journey, where they're at in life? Because look, at the end of the day, regardless of your leadership capacity and role, you're a human being just like them. Everyone's got stories. Everyone's got battles that they're fighting, right? That is the nature of life. That's the nature of dealing with adversity and struggle to make us stronger and to help us grow as human beings. Okay, so 2-minute stories are really, really good. Anchor your position. So if you guys look right now, what I have done up to this point, you see me using my hands a lot, right? You see me shifting my hips sometimes, right? What am I not doing? This. Well, and then at the same time, I think it's really important. Do you see what I'm doing right here, right? I am not anchored. You want to be anchored. Okay. Whenever I start fidgeting and moving a lot with my entire body, sometimes people can equate that, right, at a subconscious level with instability, right? And it can be a bit of a stretch, right? But there's something to it. Being able to stand firm, being able to still utilize animation and passion, but at the same time, I am not pacing back and forth. So anchor your position. Now let's talk about gesturing. All right, gesturing is a really big deal. And as you guys can see, I talk with my hands a lot. Okay, now what's the point? What's the reason that I want to talk with my hands? I want to show that I am all in, right? My entire essence, my entire being, I am focused on the message that I am conveying to you, nothing else. Okay, so when you see me talking about, for example, positives and negatives, well, if you go back to those filler words that I talked about, okay, with word choices in pillar number 1, what did I do? I said, filler words, you want to crumple them and you want to throw them away. Away, not towards you. I'm going away from you, right? Away from the audience. If there's something that I want you to do that is positive in nature, I'm pointing at you, right? And here's a caveat to that as well. Whenever you are pointing, right, don't always just do this. Mix it up and utilize, right, what we call the thumb pointer. So you tuck the finger in, right, your pointer finger in, and you put your thumb right over. This right here, okay? I'm still getting the point across that I'm having a conversation with you, right? And I'm focused on what I am saying, but at the same time, it's also not as declarative as me pointing my finger like this, okay? All right, so gesturing the positive and negatives. Anytime you have a negative point, point away. Anytime you have a positive point, point at, okay? All right. When you talk about something, right, that has to do, did you see what just happened? I said right. Remember, no filler words, okay? Again, it happens to all of us. So catch it. Catch it when it happens. Make yourself better for it, okay? So when you're looking at what does it take to optimize how it is that the audience is interpreting what it is that I'm saying and how it is that I'm saying. Listen, again, folks, it's not about what you are saying, it's how you are saying it, right? What is the intonation, which we're going to talk about here on our next pillar. But when you take a look at how will this message be received? Truthfully, right? Do I want folks to tune out after the first 5 minutes? Do I want folks to actually dive in and walk this path with me down the conversation that I'm attempting to have with them? Absolutely, I do. So when you're looking at what it takes for folks to interpret what you're saying correctly, you have to cater to their learning style. I think a lot of people know, listen, there's various learning styles. You've got visual learners, you've got auditory learners, you've got kinesthetic learners, right? You have to incorporate all these elements into your presentation, into your interviews, into your meetings. You want to touch every single person. You want every single person to be able to resonate with at least one thing, right, of what it is that you have to say. Because if you're not resonating and you're just talking, what's the point? Again, go back to what my grandfather told me in the very beginning, right? Time is the most precious commodity that any one of us has, all right? Do not waste your time and do not waste their time, all right? Very important. All right, so let's talk about utilizing words to create majority agreement. Now, we're still under the neuro-linguistic programming umbrella, okay? So hang tight with me because we're getting to the end of it, but this part is really important, okay? Whenever we are in a state of affirmatory response, right? When I'm saying, all right, ladies and gentlemen, for everyone who is tuning in right now, if you know you can be a better leader, say yes. Let everyone say yes, right? If you desire to be the best company within your industry, say I do. Let everyone say I do. If you and your team are going to reach every single goal on your horizon, say, we will. Now, what am I doing? I just presented 3 different questions that I'm asking you to confirm for me. I'm asking you to confirm by utilizing your own voice. Right? I want you to know that you are committed because there's something to be said that I'm just going to think about it. And yeah, of course I do. But when I speak it, there's a whole different variable of power that is introduced. So we want to make sure that you are bringing folks together to create what they call the collective consciousness as a group, as a team, and also as an individual. We could talk days about leadership and what it means to be able to interview with leadership skills as well as applying leadership. What matters in leadership? It's very simple, right? How well can you influence and motivate others to reach their full potential to achieve a mutual objective? That's it. That is it, right? So every touch point you have to squeeze the juice out of it, which means that you got to bring the energy. You got to bring the fire. Okay, you cannot sit there and think, oh, this is great content. They're going to really enjoy this narrative. Not at all. People don't thrive off of that, right? What people thrive off of is connection. Connect with your audience, okay? All right, let's talk about intonation. So again, we've kind of pitter-pattered around this, right? But again, not what you say, but how you say it. I think you all can tell, right? I'm very emotional and excited about this topic. And there's a reason for that, right? Because this topic means much more to me than just spending some time telling you or giving you some advice on how to make yourself better. To me, I have personal ties and roots. At a very young age, my mother was the head of training and operations for Wendy's International. She used to teach other executives how to do public speaking and leadership and management. So starting around the age of 5, my mom would have me in front of a camera. She'd have me review speeches I would be doing for school, and she would critique me, and she would make me critique myself, okay? So every single time that I get an opportunity to stand up on a stage or stand up in a meeting or on a video conference and webinar like this, to me, it takes me back to my childhood, and it means something to me. You need to find what means something to you. When you are conveying a message, when you are conveying certain things that you can bring to the table that fall within your wheelhouse of specialty, what is it that you can bring to the table to make people better? Now, I want you to see what I just did. Okay, remember, let's go back to neuro-linguistic programming and telling a quick story. What story did I tell you? That when I was a kid, right, my mom is the one who trained me and conditioned me for public speaking, which led to me eventually doing it all the time professionally, right? As an entrepreneur, as a community leader, it's something that I do a lot because it means something. But I wanted it to resonate with you that much more. Why? Because each and every one of us has a parent. Each and every one of us has an experience, good and bad or bad, right, with our parents. But I want to create that relatability with you, okay? All right, so let's talk about why people respond to emotion. Listen, passion. Passion is missing nowadays. You do not see people invoke passion where the passion is rooted in legitimately wanting to help others. So when you think about the value of you, what it is that you bring to the table, the understanding that you have of yourself. Let's go back, right, to the very beginning. And I asked you to do what? Take 20 seconds and explain who you are to yourself. Write down the 5 things that guide and define you as a person. If you don't have those dialed in, first and foremost, it's okay. Second of all, we need to do that sooner than later. You need to take the time, right, to be able to identify what those pillars are so you can become a more effective leader, so you can become a more effective influencer and ultimately guide your team and your company to the pinnacles of success, which happens to be what we specialize in here at CEO Effectiveness. That is what we do. Over 3 decades worth of experience in clinical psychology and leadership and development training, an incredible cadre of staff that has impeccable backgrounds when it comes to leadership, management, and human behavior. That is part of the reason why we are offering this particular webinar to you. We want you to know there's many different things that go into making yourself better and more effective than just the bottom line, right? Than just getting the latest gimmick that's out there for team management. It's much more than that because ultimately it starts with you. It's top down. I know there's top-down leadership, bottom-up leadership, top-down leadership. All the empirical evidence shows top-down leadership is what is the most effective. So where are you at, right? And being able to optimize what that top actually means. Okay, so let's talk about some hardcore logistics, right? So backdrop and lighting. Okay, so a lot of folks, and I see this time and time again on different meetings, whether it's Zoom, Microsoft Teams, what have you. Ladies and gentlemen, please coordinate the colors in your backdrop, right? If I were to hop on this morning, okay, and I had on a white undershirt and a beige coat, that contrast is not going to be what I want. I want something that pops, yet is not overtly intimidating, right? What do I mean by intimidating? Well, if I walked on and had a black suit on with a black tie and a black shirt, it may look slick, right? But am I projecting the image that I want you to interpret, that I'm a warm person that is open to the possibility of different interpretations, okay? So color coordinate, stay away from busy backgrounds. I know so many folks have, pictures in their backgrounds, or they line their camera up to a window that's behind them. Don't do that. Stick with solid, stick with basic. Why? Basic doesn't leave any room open, right, to folks trying to figure out what's going on in the camera. You want them completely focused on you. Nothing more, nothing less, right? You need them to feel like you are right there with them at that moment in time, having that conversation directed towards them, okay? So anything that has to do with color coordination that doesn't match, that's overtly busy, crinkle that up, throw it away. Okay, you don't want it. It causes too much room for ambiguity. And we all know the brain does not like ambiguity. It likes knowing what's going on. Okay, all right, let's talk now about audio. Listen, audio is super, super important. There is nothing more frustrating than tuning in. You got great quality video and you see someone's mouth going and either there's a delay, right, or it's choppy, right? So you have to test your equipment, right? You got to go through the process beforehand, right? Don't wait till the 11th hour. Do yourself a favor. Give yourself a 24-hour kind of headway to practice, get on onto a meeting with a friend, right? Test your equipment out. Because look, here's a rule of thumb in the world of speaking and interviewing. If it can go wrong, it's going to go wrong. Okay, so make sure you have got contingency plans. Make sure you are prepared, right, for whatever you may have to deal with, because 9 times out of 10, a lot of times the surprises that hit us, it's a surprise for a reason, right? Because if we knew about it, we understood it, it wouldn't be a surprise. We'd be expecting it and we'd have a plan for it. So I want you to expect the unexpected. That's super important, okay? So let's talk now, all right? Let's move on to our last pillar, all right? Now, this is really, really important. And the reason why this is really, really important is I want you all to understand the significance and the value of one word: confidence. Now, we've all heard that word. We've all used that word. What does confidence actually mean? Well, let's break it down, right? Confidence, from an etymology perspective, right? It comes from the Latin of con, which means with, and fide, faith, right? Con fide, confidence, meaning faith within yourself, belief in yourself that you're going to achieve what you want out of this time together with the folks that you are speaking to, okay? So that is paramount. You've got to understand that when you step into that camera, when you go into that webinar, you want to exude confidence. You don't want to have an overt sense of being pompous, right? You want to be confident, right? And a lot of times, some of the most humble people in the world are the most confident because they have nothing to prove. Again, let's go back to word choice do's and don'ts. You need to, you have to. No. You don't want to force people into a funnel. You want people to find their way in their own journey, okay? And a great way to do that is to be confident in your own journey and have them learn lessons that you've picked up along the way, okay? All right, let's talk about the importance of rehearsals, okay? So I know we talked about 24 hours. Give yourself some headway, check all your equipment, check your lighting, what are you gonna wear, right? But rehearsals in the sense of, I want you to go through and do a mock interview, and this is gonna be no surprise to many of you, but it's what you do with the mock interview that matters, okay? So when you go through and you go and do a dry run, what are you looking for? Because you absolutely should be recording it. Don't just do it to do it. And say, okay, I feel comfortable with the content. We've established it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So what are you looking for within yourself? What's the intonation? What's the body language? What sorts of parameters from NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, are you utilizing? Are you utilizing filler words? Little things that happen that you may not catch because you're in the moment and you're going, right? But those things matter. So be able to critique yourself. Be able to be humble enough to say, I know I can do it better. Each time I get to do it, it's gonna be better. That is priceless, okay? So do yourself the favor, right? And be able to go and take a look back record, critique, and also share it with folks whose opinion you value. It could be a spouse, it could be a friend, it could be a colleague. Sit down, have them look at the recording and say, hey, give me some feedback. What are your top 3 takeaways from what it is that I have to say? And if those top 3 takeaways are not in alignment, right, with the goal that you had on the onset, then you got to go back and revisit the drawing board, okay, which is completely okay. All of us go through it, but I want you to give yourself the opportunity to do it, to make yourself better before you are live. Because again, you want to optimize the most precious commodity that every single person tuning in has, which is time. Okay, so let's talk about interview closing must-dos. Okay, so this is a big deal. All right, this is a really big deal. Your beginning and your closing need to kind of look similar. Now, why would I say they need to look similar? Okay, you want consistency. Anytime I have a ton of variability, anytime there's a lot of ping ponging and I don't go back and revisit ideas. Think of some of the most basic and meaningful lessons in your life. Are they lessons that have repeated themselves or proved themselves time and time again? Of course. What does that equate itself to? Meaning and impact. So if I am saying certain things like the most important commodity they have is their time, right? If I am saying things like negative this way, positive this way, if I am saying things like record yourself, critique yourself, and I keep repeating it, there's a reason why I'm repeating it. I want it to stick. I want it to drive itself home. Because ultimately, every single person tuning in right now to this webinar, are you going to remember everything I am saying? No, absolutely not. You're going to have 1 to maybe 3 things that you're going to walk away from this time today that we have. Right? And that's okay. That's expected. That is normal. Okay? I would hope that folks who are taking this very seriously take some notes down and see how they can apply it, right, for the next interview or the next online meeting or in-person meeting that they have. But I also understand that every single person has a lot of things that are going on. What's the priority in which you put this sort of content in your life? And again, that's on me as a presenter and the facilitator. Am I making it palpable for you? Am I making it passionate enough to where it's resonating with your heart, your mind, and your soul? Okay, so let's talk about the hardcore essence of a closing. First and foremost, give them 1 to 3 steps to take away, right? Now, if you go back to the very beginning, when I talk about what are 3 things that I hope that you hope to get right out of our time together, what are 1 to 3 things that you hope that this webinar content will be able to change or improve in your business model for you as a leader from a top-down perspective? Revisit those things, right, throughout the entirety of your presentation or your interview. That's very important. All right, number 2, giving ways to stay in contact is really important. So many of us who utilize PowerPoint and Prezi and all these other different platforms, we'll put a slide up, right, that's got our phone number and our email, and that's great and that's wonderful. But ultimately, it is on us to follow up, right? It is on us to be able to create that conversation with folks and direct them, right, to places where they can learn more if they want to learn more. But you've got to have some sort of actionable item. Don't just give them contact information, right? You want to continue the conversation. You want to be able to take the conversation to the next level, whether that's an internal team member, which I know all of us, we invite those conversations. We want to know, I want to know what's going on with my employees. I want to know what's going on with my family and my friends, with my peers, with my community, because I have something valuable to offer and to give. Right? So you want to have that discussion and that conversation. So the idea of saying at the very end, I'd love to hear from each and every one of you so I can hear where you're at in your journey. I want to be able to share stories so we can compare, right? That way, if there's something maybe you're doing that I could learn from, I'm completely open to that, and vice versa, okay? All right, smile. All right, so this is big. So many of us, when we are doing interviews and we're looking at ourselves in the computer and we see the video going on, the idea of doing this, it can feel a little awkward, okay? But that's okay. Remember, what I am saying, right, is not as important as how I am saying it. My body gestures, my body language, this is the universal sign for what? Happiness. This is the universal sign for what? I want to be here. Now, if I am just talking at the camera, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. Make sure you get a hold of us. right? No way, right? Thank you all so much for taking your time to be here with each and every one of us who have presented and facilitated. We're incredibly grateful for the opportunity, and we look forward to continuing that conversation that will take you to the next level. See the difference? Okay. Speak to the people. Let them feel that passion. Let them feel that emotion. Okay. So let's do a quick recap, right? So all these different pillars. So number one, you got your word choice do's and don'ts. Stay away from that command presence, right? There is something to be said about being authoritative in a time and a place. When you are speaking to folks in an interview setting, that's not the time, okay? So anything that has to do with you need to, you have to, bundle them up, throw them away, okay? Number two, the many facets of neurolinguistic programming. Look, any one of these pillars, ladies and gentlemen, you can spend a lifetime studying. There's no two ways about it. Today serves as an introduction, right? Just to have, and some of you may be very familiar with these topics, but how well have you applied them? That's the question, right? Because we could all be familiar and know it, but if we're not doing it and we're not applying it on a daily basis, it's not going to mean anything. Okay, so neurolinguistic programming, what's the point? You want to be able to speak to the unconscious and subconscious of your audience. You want to be able to tap in past what they call the gatekeeper and speak to the heart of the matter. Let's bypass all the different predeterminations that are there on a conscious level, and I want to dive into and speak to your heart and the deeper part of your mind so it's meaningful. That's my goal with NLP. I want to have the maximum amount of impact that is going to motivate you at an emotional level, which will influence the logical. Okay? All right. Pillar number three, intonation. Okay, so what it is that you're saying, right? Again, it's not as important as how it is you are saying it. Being able to regulate and moderate your tone, right? If I stay monotone the entire time while I'm having this presentation, and I think you guys are going to really enjoy it, really? I don't think so, right? So imagine your intonation kind of like a roller coaster, right? Peaks, lows, peaks, lows, peaks, lows, and the things that mean the most are where you peak, right? The things where you want to have a little bit more of a subtle undertone or perhaps are very, very serious, lows, okay? Up, down, up, down, up, down. Backdrop and lighting, okay? So this is super important. When we are thinking about what it takes for us to achieve an optimal impact on individuals, right? You want to make sure that their entire attention span is given to you, not your background, right? Not busy stuff you may have going on, not your suit that doesn't match with the background, right? You want to make sure that what are they focused on? What's coming out of my mouth and how I am saying it, nothing more, nothing less. Okay, so make sure you color coordinate, right? Make sure that you stick to solid backgrounds. Make sure that you match colors. Very important. Okay, let's talk about now the pre-interview exercises, right? Certain things that you need to do, those rehearsals. Check your audio, right? Check your video. Go through and record yourself and critique yourself before you go live. Have others critique you as well. It is only going to make you better. The biggest thing that I want you to take away from this is the fact of what are the 1 to 3 things you want your audience to walk away with. If you don't have that very clear, if you don't have that idea, that thesis clear as day, right? How can you expect them to take away anything of significance or value from what it is that you're trying to say, right? So for me today, when we're having this conversation, what are the 3 things that I want each and every one of you to walk away with? Number one, when you're doing an interview, when you are managing something online, it is on you to bring the thunder and to bring the fire, which means what? How well you can convey that message. How well you can convey that message. You can convey it. How well are you conveying it? And what's the judge of that? How well is it being received? Is it being interpreted? Okay. Number 2, the idea of speaking and doing interviews is a process and a journey. You've got to practice, right? Practicing is immense, right? So not just the 24-hour beforehand and kind of doing it and getting a critique and recording it. No. This applies to any sort of messaging that you are doing in any facet of your business. Okay, whether I'm doing my 20-second elevator speech to somebody about what I do and how I do it, right? Or I am diving into different components of service offerings and products that my company can bring to the table and serve as a solution to a pain point that a client may have. The conciseness, the precision, and the efficiency of what you are saying and how you are saying it will define you as a person to the individual that you are speaking to. So you want to be very concise. You want to be very pointed in what you're saying and how you're saying it, okay? And ultimately, number 3, what do I want you to walk away with today? I want you to have a thirst and a passion to learn more, right? Not just learn more about this process, more importantly, to learn more about yourself. Because if there is one overarching thing that means the most, it's how well you understand and you know you. Here at CEO Effectiveness, we call that self-knowledge. What does your self-knowledge look like? So many of us have no concept. We confuse it with emotional intelligence. We confuse it with self-awareness. Very different. And I'd love to have that conversation with you. Okay, so self-knowledge. Where is your level of self-knowledge? Because that will be conveyed in every touch point that you have with folks whenever you're doing an interview, whenever you're hosting a meeting, or just having a conversation. All right, an interview closing must-dos. Look, first and foremost, again, revisit consistencies and what it is that you have spoken about. Revisit consistencies and things that you want to drive home. Those 3 things that you really want to make sure that they take away. Do not overcomplicate your closing. Keep it simple, keep it direct, and keep it meaningful. Okay. You want to stay away from offerings and, if you do this, then we'll do that. And no. People are tired of that. That is something that has been around. It's a tactic that's been around for a long time. They want authenticity. You can bring them authenticity. Anytime that you're just on a templated approach and just saying stuff to say stuff, again, you want to take all that, crinkle it up, and throw it away. Okay? It's not useful, and it only degrades your message and the quality of person that you are trying to show who you authentically are. Okay? Now, a big thing that I want to close out and let you guys know. Okay, so first and foremost, whenever you're closing, it's one thing to tell individuals that, thank you for taking the time. That it's meaningful, and that's nice. But let me tell you something that may have a bit more of an impact, right? When you show folks and you tell them, I appreciate you for investing the most valuable commodity that you have on this life in me. And that most valuable commodity is time. So it's not just, thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate it. Standard template, we've all heard that, right? I really appreciate you investing in the most precious commodity that you have and investing that commodity in me. This time, this morning, right here, right now. It means a lot. Again, speak to the emotion, all right? Be able to create that connection and show what it means to you that they are there. Not just an opportunity for you to show some cool brand awareness, right? Not an opportunity for you to boast about certain things that you've accomplished. What do you want them to walk away with? All right, and lastly, smile. All right, again, it may feel awkward. You may feel like, oh my gosh, I'm forcing this. No, all right, you want to be comfortable and confident. Again, confidence meaning confide, with faith. Faith meaning what? The belief that you can do things that maybe you haven't been presented with yet, but you have the understanding and you have the awareness and knowledge within yourself to know that you'll overcome anything. That's priceless, okay? All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to put up, and I've been in contact with all of you via email, but for purposes of this presentation, I'm going to put up a card that's got my contact information. So remember, when you're going through this process and you're revisiting these concepts that we have talked about today, I am at your disposal, okay? No charge, no nothing like that. I'm happy to have a conversation with you and help you along this journey as you continue to improve your interviewing skills, your online management skills. This is a very new territory for a lot of us, okay? So we want to make sure that you're optimizing every single facet that you can to make sure you're having the impact for folks who look up to you for leadership and also the folks that you serve, okay? So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and put up this card so you guys can see it. And by all means, feel free to give me a call, right? So you will see the 813-352-2080 number. That is my personal cell phone. I rarely give that out when we're doing these sorts of events, but I am more than happy to give it out to the audience that is present today. You can also obviously call our office line, but my direct number is 813-352-2080. Additionally, you will see my email address there, gkalora@ceoeffectiveness.com. Again, folks, no fancy closing, no fancy gimmick or service offering. This is very simply, I want to know where you're at in your journey. What are things that you feel like you need to work on? Because I guarantee you, I've been there, all right? And I'm still working on to this day. It never ends, okay? All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much. And I really, really appreciate you taking the most valuable commodity that you have on this walk of life, and that is your time. Thank you for investing it in me. And more importantly, thank you for investing it in yourself. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe and stay healthy. Dr. Gino Couleur, CEO Effectiveness. We'll see you all soon.